The trans community in particular is always, it's even before Trump, feels to me like of all the communities under that umbrella, the one that's most frequently in the crosshairs. It's got the biggest healthcare risks in the trans community, biggest suicide and drug and substance abuse challenges. So again, I don't want to be a broken record, but we've done a lot. I'm incredibly proud of all that we've done. But if the feds make big moves, for instance, I can't control gender identification of the U.S. military, as an example. So there are things that are beyond us that we'll use the bully pulpit. We've been effective at that. We will use the legal levers for sure. This isn't a trans case, but Tammy and I were talking about, I don't want to get into too much detail, but there's someone in our broader universe whose immigration status is not yet at the point that they are trying to get it to. And we said, you know what, let's have her live at our house above our garage. And good luck to the feds coming in to try to get her. So it's going to be a whole combination.
All right, guys. So once again, we got to talk about the insanity of the Democrat Party. Okay, they're doubling and tripling down on far left politics that are unpopular with the American people. And this is just another example of what I'm talking about, because as you guys saw at the beginning of this video, super woke Democrat governor from New Jersey, Phil Murphy, was talking about how they're going to do everything they can as Democrats to fight for the far left woke agenda, okay, and to also harbor illegal immigrants, okay? That's what he said. He said that he was harboring an illegal immigrant in his house to try to hide the illegal immigrant from being deported by ICE. Now, I got a whole lot of questions about this illegal immigrant. He said that this illegal immigrant was a she, so mainly about the age of this illegal immigrant that Mr. Phil Murphy is trying to hide from the feds. Okay, that should be investigated ASAP. And lo and behold, Tom Homan has come out and responded to Mr. Phil Murphy by basically saying that, yes, you can and will be prosecuted for housing an illegal immigrant. We will come and arrest you for that.
Let me read a headline to you. Chicago leaders encourage residents to exercise their rights in resisting Trump's deportation policies. The governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy, basically admitted that he knew somebody that didn't have full documentation, that he was hiding over his garage.
But there's someone in our broader universe whose immigration status is not yet at the point that they are trying to get it to. And we said, you know what, let's have her live at our house above our garage. And good luck to the feds coming in to try to get her.
Your comment on all of that?
I think the governor's pretty foolish saying what he said, because I got note of it. Won't let it go. We'll look into it. And if he's knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien, that's a violation of Title 8 United States Code 1324. I would seek prosecution, or the secretary would seek prosecution. So maybe he's bluffing. If he's not, we'll deal with that. And as far as suing sanctuary cities, well, get in line, because the Trump administration is going to do that already. Sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals. There's one example, right? If the young sanctuary cities in New York City, if they would have gave us over the killer of Laken Riley when he got arrested in New York City for endangering a child, he would have been in jail, and he would have never killed Laken Riley. Sanctuary cities are responsible for deaths of thousands of young children throughout my career, and we're going to sue them. We're going to hold them. And look, if he's got to go to the Supreme Court, that's what President Trump wanted to do. He will end sanctuary cities.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. I think that governor is trying to make an example out of himself. I think he said it on purpose. I think that he wants to make a scene out of the feds arresting him for harboring an illegal immigrant. I think that's what he wants. I think that's the path that the Democrat Party has chosen. You know, we're going to just go down swinging against the American people, right? That's essentially, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. So with that being said, while the Democrats and their priorities are harboring illegal immigrants, potentially protecting criminals, the Trump administration, they're trying to deport the criminals. They're trying to not only get the criminals out of the country, but to make sure they don't come back to the country and to send a stark warning to those who are thinking about coming into the country illegally and committing some violent crime that, hey, you might not be deported back to your home country. You might not even be kept in a U.S. prison. We're going to send you to El Salvador, which is known to have one of the harshest prison systems on earth. So that is the fate of not only illegal immigrants who come over here and commit ultra-violent crimes, but also apparently Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, has also agreed to take in violent U.S. criminals, right? So U.S. citizens who are violent criminals, he said, yeah, we'll take them too, okay, for a fee. So this is not a done deal yet. However, this is an offer that's on the table, okay? So the United States, as of the making of this video, we haven't accepted this, but it seems like a pretty good offer to me. I hope we accept it. I really do. Without further ado, let's get into this.
Human rights groups are condemning an unprecedented potential deal between El Salvador and the U.S. The country has offered to house violent criminals from America, including U.S. citizens, and receive deportees of any nationality. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio unveiled the offer after meeting with the country's president on Monday.
He has agreed to accept for deportation any illegal alien in the United States who is a criminal from any nationality, be they MS-13 or Tren de Aragua, and house them in his jails. And third, he has offered to house in his jails dangerous American criminals in custody in our country, including those of U.S. citizenship and legal residence. No country's ever made an offer of friendship such as this.
Well,
Yo, I got to tell you guys, it is beautiful how all this stuff is coming together. This is why I wasn't really freaking out about Marco Rubio becoming the Secretary of State. Because one, I saw how President Trump he sunned Marco Rubio back in 2016. So I know that Marco Rubio, he's going to be the type of guy, he's going to do what the president wants to do, right? And when it comes to the modern day version of the Monroe Doctrine, the Roosevelt culinary, that is what we're seeing from President Trump, right? More U.S. presence and influence in Latin America, in the Western Hemisphere, on our side of the world, right? We need to control our side of the world, okay? Maybe we shouldn't worry about what's going on the other side of the world so much when we have our side of the world in which we have to deal with issues that are negatively impacting the American people, like mass illegal immigration of criminals and drugs into this country, okay? That's a big problem. So you have somebody like Marco Rubio, who is somebody that can definitely relate and communicate with these leaders effectively on behalf of the American people. Yeah, you're going to get deals like this. And this deal right here is an amazing deal because, one, deporting the gang members back to Venezuela or Colombia or Mexico is a diplomatic headache. Okay, you guys can see what we've been dealing with when it comes to Colombia, Mexico, etc., right? It's just a diplomatic headache, right? To deport criminals back to these countries because these countries don't even want their criminals, right? So it is tougher to do that than to just send them to El Salvador, right? Just send them to the same El Salvador prison that El Salvador houses their own violent criminals in, and that's it, right? We're done with it. Because if these other countries, if you don't want to take back your citizens, cool. We don't want them either. And they committed violent crimes in our country. So we're going to send them to El Salvador and they can house them. And that way, the criminals, they stay locked up forever and they're not a problem. Because even if you ship them back to their home countries, they're just going to still engage in transnational gang activities. That's what they're going to do. There's a chance they can try to come back to the United States, right? So in some cases, deportation is not enough. You got to actually have a place to house these people, particularly the most dangerous among them. And El Salvador has essentially created an industry out of this, right? They have perfected the art of mass incarceration. And I love it. I wish that we would copy them, to be honest with you, when it comes to mass incarcerating the violent criminals here in the United States of America, okay? They make these criminals work. They don't just sit around all day and do nothing. They actually have to produce their own food. It has to be self-sustainable. It is an industry, and it is efficient to ship them off to another country, to put them in a supermax prison, to be controlled by people who specialize in this type of operation. You pay them a fee, and we never have to worry about it again. It helps them out. It helps us out, right? And we're good to go. This is how diplomacy should work. This is the type of stuff that I love about the Trump administration. We're not playing games with criminals, especially if you're here illegally. But even if you are a U.S. citizen and you commit some violent murder, yeah, you can be sent to El Salvador. And I know the race hustlers and the woke revolutionaries will be boo-hoo-whining, crying, the civil rights activists, the human rights activists. You can't do that. You can't send murderers to El Salvador. You're going to be sending black people. You're going to be deporting black people. Right? That's what they'll say. That's how they'll spin this story, right? President Trump agrees to deport black people to El Salvador, right? That is how they would spin a story like this, right? But the fear of the possibility of this being your punishment for committing an ultra-violent act in this country, regardless of you're here legally or illegally, that in and of itself will prevent people from committing these acts in the first place. That's the whole point. You have to scare people into the behaviors that you want, right? It is what it is. So I love this. And this is also why Bukele, I think that they should just go ahead and make him king, right? Go ahead and make him king. They do not need democracy, guys. The worst thing that a country like El Salvador could have right now is democracy. Apparently, they went out of their way to change the rules to allow him to run again. Okay, that's why he's president now. But we don't know at the end of his term in 2029 whether or not he's going to be able to run for president again. I say that they should definitely change the rules and just allow him to keep running. Just allow him to continue to be president, because that's what a country like this needs, right? A country like this does not need democracy, okay? You need somebody that can rule with an iron fist, because this is a very, very, very delicate situation, and stability for a country like this is something that it needs at least for the next 2 to 3 decades before they think about switching a leader, right? They need continuity in leadership. If they vote in some leftist, right, or some other individual who decides that, hey, you know what, we're going to start to let some of these criminals out, right, because of human rights abuses, right? If they decide to do stuff like that, yeah, a country like El Salvador could fall apart instantly, right? So they actually need to consider just making Bukele king at this point. I'm so serious, right? I'm very serious right now. That is the honest to God truth when it comes to countries like this. There are some countries where you need this type of leadership, right? Like democracy don't really work. Once you got the right dude, right? You got the right dude, you got to stick with the right dude, because picking the wrong dude could be disastrous.
Says it will take a fee to house convicted criminals in its mega prison. The country has one of the highest incarceration rates in the world. CNN contributor Stefano Pozzebon is tracking the story from Bogota, Colombia, and he's joining us now. Stefano, aside from the fee the country will be paid, I mean, what's in it for El Salvador? Is this all about the money, or is it about trying to gain favor with the new administration?
It definitely is about gaining favor with the new administration. We know that President Bukele of El Salvador has had personal relationships with both Donald Trump and, of course, with Elon Musk in the past. He's a big friend of big tech down in Central America. But I think here there is a very important precision to make out that despite outstanding the idea of deporting U.S. convicted criminals, American citizens that are serving a sentence in the U.S. and moving them to El Salvador, as Mark Rubio appeared to suggest that was on offer late last night, there is one important clarification to point out. Take a listen to what one of the professors that we spoke with told me yesterday about this potential deal.
People who are alleged gang members who have not yet been convicted of a criminal violation have still only, if they are undocumented, only violated a civil code, not a criminal code. So the idea of using this alleged category, this very loose and overly flexible category to detain, incarcerate, and potentially deport, not even to a country of origin. I mean, it really does undermine the credibility of the United States as a rule of law-based country.
No, it does not. No, it does not. In fact, what you're advocating for undermines the United States as a rule of law-based country because you want lawlessness, right? You want to allow illegal immigrant criminals, violent criminals into our country and then treat them better than the American people. That's what you want to do. That's what you are advocating for. No other country in the world does that. Not any sane countries. No country does that. Does China do that, right? How do they treat their illegal immigrants, right? That commit violent crimes in that country, right? I wonder how they treat them. I don't think ultra violent criminals get due process. I'm just saying. I mean, at this point, I'm tired of the United States trying to run around and pretend as if, oh, well, you know, we're above doing this and that when it comes to human rights. It's like, no, we're not, right? No, we're not. We're not above it. We should stop pretending that we're above it because ultimately at the end of the day, as a country, you're going to have to make tough decisions and you got to do what you got to do. Okay. You have to do what you have to do to protect your people. And if that means that you are violating the rights of people who are not your people, then it is what it is. You got to do what you got to do. Right. Other countries do it and they do it to protect themselves. And we got to do the same thing. We have to look out for America first. It is what it is. And these people are America last. They're everybody else over us.
And Amara, that distinction is crucial here because under the new state of emergency law that Nayib Bukele passed in El Salvador in 2022, there is no distinction between alleged and convicted criminals. The police has the authority to detain any person on the suspicion of being part of a gang, maybe because they have tattoos, maybe because they are seen hanging out in neighbors that are under the control of the gangs. And that's why human rights organizations in El Salvador are telling us that they believe that out of the 82,000 people that have been detained in the last 2 years, several tens of thousands of them are actually innocent. And so the idea for the United States to handle their gang problem and the problems that these transnational gangs like Tren de Aragua and MS-13 are posing to the administration with these same tactics as El Salvador has employed over the last 2 years is raising enormous concern, not just for the human rights activists that we're speaking with and opposition people and of course the Democratic Party in the United States, but for everyone who is really looking at the rule of law in this side of the world, because it could be a model to be exported in many other countries. We're seeing across Latin America and other countries looking at Nayib Bukele as an example, as a model to follow on how to tackle gang crime and particular levels of violence that are typical of this side of the world, where we're seeing that these potential deal could just give Bukele a badge of honor for him to wear. Amara?
As he should. As he should. He should wear a badge of honor because all of these countries in Latin America need to adopt the same model. If they adopt the same model, they will be a lot safer, right? Mexico need to do it. Everybody needs to do it. Everybody needs their own Nayib Bukele in Latin America, to be honest with you. But in this situation right here, imagine being concerned about alleged gang members and violent criminals, right? Just imagine being concerned about that. That's what you're concerned about? Really? Really? And here's the thing, you know, they keep talking about how you have people in that prison in El Salvador who are innocent, right? They're not, you know, involved in a gang or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, here's the thing. In countries like that, you know, you're going to have to do things that are controversial. You're going to have to overshoot rather than undershoot in order to control the violence in a country like that, to get things under control. And eventually you try to make things right, but ultimately that incentivizes anybody who doesn't want to put themselves at risk of being locked up in a prison like that. Don't associate with gang members. Don't get near gang members, right? It basically incentivizes people to stigmatize anything related to gangs or gang culture, right? Because they know that, well, even me being associated with it, regardless of whether or not I'm in it or whether or not I'm committing any crimes or violent acts, that I could be arrested for it. That incentivizes people to isolate themselves from the gangs. And that isolates the gangs, which makes it harder for them to operate, right? If nobody wants to be around them and people are scared to be around the gang members, then yeah, that's going to make it a lot harder for the gangs to thrive. That's how you stop crime. That's how you stop gang activity. So if you don't want to be arrested for it, then don't associate with the gang. Don't wear any paraphernalia, no tattoos. Don't even play with it. Don't play with it. Don't pretend to be a gang member. Don't even dress up as a gang member for Halloween, right? If you don't want to be arrested, it's harsh, but hey, it worked. It worked. It is what it is. It ain't my country, right? But I'm just saying that, hey, you know, big, tough old crime works. So, you know, I think this is a great deal. If we're going to be sending ultra-violent illegal immigrants to El Salvador, I wouldn't mind sending ultra-violent U.S. citizens to El Salvador too. Or at least have the threat of it be out there, right? I wouldn't mind that either. That would help clean up a lot of these inner liberal cities. Sure would. And people would be upset about it. But hey, it would keep law-abiding citizens safe. And that's what's the most important to me, right? I care much more about law-abiding citizens than I do the criminals. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.